This winter hood for girls is easy knitting and very, very warm. The pattern is for tweens to small ladies, heads up to 21 inches in circumference. I will also include adjustments to the pattern if you want to make it for a lady with a little bit larger head. The lower edge of the hood may either be knitted in 1x1 rib or seed stitch. Make at least the number of ribbing or seed stitch rows that is given in the pattern, but you may knit more if you wish. 2 gauges are given. One for a number 6 yarn. I'm using Lion Hometown on a 3/4 inch gauge loom. This version requires 36 pegs. The other version is for a 5/8 inch loom and requires 48 pegs. You'll see me knitting with Premier Bloom, a number 5 yarn. I'm working with these 2 looms. The one with the purple pegs and the straight sides is a Cindwood 3/4 inch rectangular loom, and I only need one side of it. The X loom is a 5/8 inch, also Cindwood. These are both perfect for the job. An oval or round loom would also work nicely, as long as you have enough pegs and they are correctly spaced. This is the basic pattern, very, very simple. For the larger gauge, cast on 36 stitches, 48 for the smaller gauge. Begin with knit 1, purl 1 ribbing, and for the larger gauge, make at least 8 rows of it. For the smaller gauge, at least 12 rows. Knit a total of 40 rows for the larger gauge or 52 for the number 5 version. And bind off using the transfer method. Leave a long yarn tail. The total row counts include the hem rows. If you choose to make seed stitch, that's knit 1, purl 1 across, second row, purl the knits and knit the purls, and repeat. A 2-row stitch pattern. The pattern is simple, but the details make it nicer. The ribbing, for example. It's nice if it ends and begins in a knit stitch. So you may want to cast on 35 or 47 stitches so as to do knit 1, purl 1 across and end with a knit 1. Then increase 1 stitch to the eventual 36 or 48 before moving on to the body of the hat. Usually in loom knitting we're looking for a tight cast on. In this case we are not. I recommend the double E-wrap. The area of the cast on is eventually going to hold a drawstring to control the lower edge of the hat, so we need to be able to work the drawstring through. These bulky yarns are plenty strong to serve as a channel, just using that double E-wrapped cast on. For this design, we're going to use the difference between the E-wrap stitch and the U-wrap knit stitch as part of the design. Where this photo is labeled knit, knit, that refers to U-wrap stitches. There are 2 at each end of every row. In between them, all the stitches are the E-wrapped version of knit stitch. The 3rd stitch from each end is a tucked purl stitch. Going left to right, you slip that stitch. Just let the yarn travel in front, but don't do anything else to it. Whether going left or right, we slip the 1st stitch of every row. So going right to left, we slip, U-wrap, purl off 2 loops together. That is 1 stitch plus the strand of yarn that was created when we slipped last row. Then use E-wrap knit stitches all the way across to the last 3 stitches. Then purl, working through both the previous stitch and slipped strand from the row below, and use the U-wrap form of the knit stitch for the last 2 stitches. So the vast majority of our stitches are the E-wrapped form of the knit stitch. It's perfectly fine if you like to do them one at a time. I tend to do them in an easily accessible group. So in this case, one of the V's made between the arms of the X works for me. And I'll wrap them all, knit the last one over, and then go back and knit the intervening stitches. What I'm about to say goes without saying for experienced knitters, But if you're new, you may not realize you should always wrap in an orientation so that where the strand of yarn crosses itself and makes the E, the cross occurs behind the peg and the smooth side is towards you. Here we are approaching the end of the row, and although I've knitted around in an X shape, it's still just a straight row of knitting. The advantage of an X loom is that it takes that straight row and makes it into a smaller package to sit on your lap. Knitting up to the last 3 pegs, this stitch was slipped last time, so now we'll purl 2 loops off together and then use the U-wrap version of the knit stitch to knit the final 2. You may notice that I'm knitting left to right and I'm purling rather than slipping, though earlier I did say slip going this direction. The truth is, it does not matter whether you slip going left to right and purl both loops going right to left or the other way around, just so you alternate. In this case, I cast on from left to right, so row 1, going from right to left, I needed to slip. Do what's comfortable for you and do slip the first row. It may be a good idea, though, to write it down so you don't get confused. Quick note about the U-wrap stitch. You see I'm not really wrapping around the peg, but it is the U-wrap because I'm holding the yarn loosely enough that it creates the wrap on its own when the previous stitch puts pressure on the new strand of yarn. For this hat, I'm using every single peg on the X loom. I'm not using any of the wedges. So the black peg is the first stitch on one row, and the white peg that's next to it is the first stitch on the other row. The yarn never travels between the two of them. Going this direction, the white peg is peg 1. I'll slip it, U-wrap the next one, purl off the 2 loops on the third peg. And this easy edge treatment is causing the hood to be tighter around the face and thus warmer, and not to roll without any further ado. Now we will E-wrap and knit over the remaining pegs, all the way over to the last 3 that get the usual treatment. When you have completed either 40 or 52 rows, bind off using the transfer bind off. At the end of the work that has the working yarn, move the end stitch over to the next peg. Wrap the new peg, knit both loops over, and repeat. When the final stitch is bound off, snip the yarn, leaving at least a 20-inch yarn tail, and pull the yarn tail through the last stitch. Thread the tail into a yarn needle. We will use it to seam the top of the hat together. Begin by stitching the edges of the front together very securely, right where they join the top seam. An extra stitch or 2 is warranted there. We don't want it to gape. Then whip stitch along the outside, working from the outside of the hat, that is, and whip stitching through the strands that most tend to roll outwards. That looks nicest to me. Pull the seam in a little bit tighter than it naturally tends to lay. We want it to curve over the top of the skull. Weave in all of the yarn tails, then snip off any excess length. Cut a length of yarn 24 to 30 inches long and run it through the cast on, going in and out. Try on the hat and pull the string that you just ran through the cast on tightly enough that it fits to tie under the chin. Make 1 stitch around each corner with the respective ends of the yarn so that the drawstring will remain in the position that fits nicely. Make a knot near the end of the drawstring to prevent it from unraveling. The version made with number 5 yarn gets 2.63 stitches and 4 rows per inch and requires 3 1/4 ounces of yarn to complete a hood. For ladies with larger heads or lots of hair, add 5 stitches and 4 rows to the counts given earlier in the pattern. The version made with number 6 yarn gets 1.88 stitches, 3 rows per inch, and requires 4 1/4 ounces. The gauges given reflect the E-wrapped knit stitch. For larger heads or lots of hair in the bulkier gauge, add 4 stitches and 3 rows to the numbers given in the main pattern. Hoods like these are extra warm because they cover the back of the neck. They also tend to be a little bit easier on the hairdo than other varieties of hats. So have fun knitting and stay warm.